Okay, good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, hi, you're watching Grexby Eats, and if you're at Old Airport Road Food Centre and you're looking for great tasting hawker food that's suitable for low carb, keto or carnivore diets, well, hopefully this guide will help you out. First, a brief history of Old Airport Road Food Centre itself. Built in 1973, Old Airport Road Food Centre was constructed to resettle the many street hawkers that plied the nearby Kallang estate. Today, it is one of Singapore's largest hawker centres with 168 cooked food stalls. In July 2017, the management of the hawker centre was transferred from the National Environment Agency (NEA) to NTUC Food Fair to become a privately run social enterprise hawker centre. Now, note before I start, I'll put a tag in the bottom left corner of the video indicating which dishes are lower carb, which means has a small amount of sugars and carbs in it, which dishes are keto, has very little to no sugars or carbs in it, and which dishes are carnivore, has very little to no sugars and carbs in it, and has very little to no vegetables in it. So come, let's eat some food. Before I jump into the rest of the video, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to the sponsor of this video, Surfshark VPN. Now that people are increasingly traveling more and more, you and plenty of people will be logging into random Wi-Fi hotspots in airports, coffee shops and so on. These hotspots are generally not secure, and they are an easy way for hackers to gain access to your personal information. So what Surfshark VPN does is to encrypt and secure your personal information before you use the internet. And this way the wrong people won't have access to your personal information. On the entertainment front, if you want to explore what Netflix content looks like in other countries, you can actually trick the streaming service into thinking that you are in another country, so you gain access to their movies and TV shows. So for the security, the privacy and the convenience, that's why I recommend Surfshark VPN. If you get the Surfshark One plan, not only do you get the VPN, but also the Surfshark antivirus, alert, search and alternative ID. Each of them has their unique feature and purpose to protect us on the internet. The cost is only a cup of coffee per month, so it's totally worth it. So if you're interested, you can use my coupon code GREXBYEATS and that'll get you an exclusive deal and 3 months free. I have a link in the description box below, and now, back to the video. First, we have live prawn soup from Kallang Cantonese live prawn noodle. I repeat, this stall sells live prawns, which is pretty amazing to find at a hawker centre. The stall is owned by a third generation owner, 62-year-old Madam Xiao To Chio, and it was started by her grandfather in the Kallang area back in 1973. I vlogged about this stall way back in September 2019. I'll put a link to the vlog in the video description below. Anyway, in 2011, Madam Xiao decided to stand out from the competition to offer live prawns instead. And I believe that this hawker stall is the only one currently offering live prawn noodles in Singapore. So what I have here is a bowl of prawn soup, $13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prawns. Okay, $13 for 6 prawns. You also get some bean sprouts and kangkong inside and a bowl of pork ribs and pig intestine soup, which cost me $7. So this whole meal cost me $20. And how you get this is to basically ask Madam Xiao to omit the noodles. Very simple. I mean, you will sort of lose out because the price is the same as you order it with noodles. So first, tasting the prawns. Okay. And the resultant prawns are simply amazing. Fresh, sweet tasting, juicy, springy. I mean, it's hard to get better quality than this Just FYI, the prawns here are live prawns which are farmed but not wild caught. If it was wild caught, the price would be significantly higher. So what Xiao does is to scoop out live prawns from a freshwater tank in front of a stall, then immediately dunk them in hot boiling water. And then maybe a couple of minutes later, the cooked prawns are strained into a bowl, then prawn broth is poured over them. $13 is the most expensive option, but their prices are much lower than the other 2 prawn noodle stalls at Old Airport Road Food Centre. At Kallang Cantonese, $13 will get you 6 prawns. But for the same price at other stalls, you get 2 giant prawns cut into half. So I think you get much better value and quality here. And in fact, the prawns are so good and worth it that some of our customers will order just her broth and live prawns without the noodles, just like what I have done so. That said, the quality of Madam Xiao's prawns are not always spot on. The prawns are gotten from the supplier every day at around 11 a.m. and it really depends on how fresh the supply is. So if you see the prawns jumping and swimming around, that's a good sign to buy them. When the prawns are half asleep at the bottom of the tank, right, I feel that the prawns aren't as sweet tasting. So always observe the live tank to see how the prawns respond. Next, the soup, the broth. Okay, the broth is strictly the clear Cantonese style, where the prawn flavor is more dominant. There's less of a pork bone flavor. The stock takes center stage and is augmented with salt and only a restrained amount of rock sugar and lots of fried onions. The taste isn't as robust as compared to the other prawn noodle stalls at this food centre lah. It is more simple and soulful instead. And the best part about fresh prawns is that you can actually take out the head and then see all the head juices, right? You just squeeze it inside the soup. And that would make the broth even richer. Look at this. Woo. Stock won't be clear anymore lah. I also ordered some of their pork ribs and intestines in soup, and this cost me $7. Get 1, 2, 3, 4 pork ribs, 7 pieces of intestines also. Okay, first the pork ribs. The pork ribs have a nice firm texture. It has a nice chew. It's got kokan. Not like some stalls that cook their pork ribs to death, where the meat is fall off the bone and the texture is too soft. The intestines. And the intestines have got a nice bouncy texture. And of course, if you want some veg, Madam Xiao gives out blanched tauge and kangkong. Next is Yong Tau Fu from this stall called Xing Yong Tau Fu. This stall has been around for about 5 years and it's not one of the big famous stalls at Old Airport Road Food Centre, but it gets a lot of solid, quiet business from the residents and the office workers in the area. The main low carb dish here is their Treasure Yong Tau Fu, which is basically all of their Yong Tau Fu items with some sliced lady's fingers thrown in. So this is what it looks like. I ordered the $6 portion and you get 2 stuffed firm tofu, 1 stuffed brinjal, 1 stuffed bitter gourd, a few stuffed tofu skin and a few stuffed tofu puff, a meat fish paste ball, maybe a fish ball. Pretty alright. And this is pretty generous for the price in my opinion. Now firstly, their soup. Now it's not bad, but I would say that this is the weakest point about the stall. It depends on how you look at it. The soup is very light, almost plain. It's got almost like a vegetable flavor inside. It's got light salt notes and light flavors. It's bad because it can almost be flavorless, especially if you're used to a heavy soup flavor. But it's actually quite nice and clean tasting with no noticeable sugar flavors at all. It doesn't taste like it's overloaded with MSG, as your throat doesn't feel dry afterwards. It's a subtle flavor that takes a while to get used to. Okay, but the main highlight are obviously their Yong Tau Fu pieces. Okay, first their stuffed bitter gourd. Now it is reasonably big and the stuffing is fairly generous. The stuffing itself is actually the main highlight. It's not ordinary fish paste and there's some minced meat actually mixed in. And the paste texture is very nice and soft and not overly firm and hard. The bitter gourd is also fried, so it's got a bit of a richness. The stuffed brinjal, pretty big. Yeah. Again, nice and big with a generous stuffing, The brinjal itself is fried to a nice soft texture too. Their firm tofu is 2, so it's kind of like equal to almost 1 firm tofu in a way. Reasonably generous stuffing again, and the tofu has a nice homemade feel to it. It's this nice appealing soft but firm texture. They are stuffed tofu puff. Again, very generous stuffing. Their tofu skin. Juicy. Nicely generous stuffing again. There's also a fishball. Nice and bouncy. Likely factory made, but at least it doesn't taste too flooded. And then you have just the meat fish paste. Oh, very nice. And of course the ladies' fingers lah. Ladies' fingers still crunchy. I also ordered their fried Yong Tau Fu items, and this is basically $5. They'll give you some tofu skins and tofu puffs. Let's see how many. 6 tofu skins and 5 tofu puffs. That's pretty generous lah for the money. $5 okay. Tofu puff. The tofu skin. Well. And what they do about this is that they actually fry it on the spot when you order a bowl. And it's nicely fried, crispy, and the stuffing is nice and soft, very nice. You know. As with all hawker food, it's all fried in palm olein, which is basically palm seed oil. As I've said, right, palm olein is not as bad as vegetable oils, as it is a food oil with lower levels of linoleic acid, but it is still quite processed, so it is not great for you either. So treat this like an indulgence lah. If you're looking for a nice dip to add more flavor, their chili sauce does this very nicely. And their Yong Tau Fu pieces can actually be a little on the plain side, because the paste itself is actually seasoned, but it's lightly seasoned, and the soup is also very, very light. So this will actually add very nice flavor. The flavor is lightly spicy, oil rich, it's got dried prawn savouriness, and there's no sweetness, which is great. Alright, finished. Oh, by the way, you can request for their treasure Yong Tau Fu with their laksa curry gravy, but it will cost you an additional $150, and you get 3 tofu puffs thrown in as well. But honestly, I would say skip it, because there's another stall selling curry Yong Tau Fu in the same hawker center, which is really damn solid. I'll talk about the stall later in the vlog. The curry gravy from this stall is okayish only. It's lacking in some stock sweetness, which will give it more flavor. Next is oyster egg or neng from Xing Cooked Food. This stall, which has been here for more than a decade, is run by an elderly uncle, and he runs the stall single-handedly. So during peak periods, be prepared to wait at least half an hour for your order. Most people order the standard or tian, which is basically oyster omelette with some fried starch mixed in, but you can easily make it carb-free by asking for oyster egg or neng, which is oysters and eggs minus the starch, and this is what I have here. See? This is the uncle's largest $10 portion, and there are several reasons why this or neng is so good. First, trying the egg. And the egg is very different from most or neng that you get from oyster omelette stalls. You'll either love it or you hate it. You know, for olawak, the egg is usually fried in a lot of oil, and the result is a fried, eggy taste, full of oil. But here it's fried at a lower temperature, and not a lot of oil is actually used. So the result is that the eggs are not crispy but fluffy and moist and juicy, because he adds some of the oyster juice into the mix. It's seasoned with some fish sauce, but if you order it without chili, right, the seasoning is light, maybe a little too light for some. And to give it an additional dimension of flavor, the uncle throws in these huge stalks of spring onion, and it gets this big spring onion flavor. Look at how big these spring onion stalks are. Ask for it with chili, as the sambal chili is dried prawn based, so it adds the additional layer of much needed savouriness. And the oysters in a $10 portion, you get, let's see. Okay, so in this $10 plate, you get 13 oysters, which is about, I don't know, 75 cents, 80 cents an oyster, which is actually incredible value. Tasting the oysters on its own. God, barely seared and quite plump. The uncle basically puts the raw oysters on top of the cooked omelette for about half a minute, and then he seasons it with fish sauce before actually serving it. The chili on the side. It's sour and a bit garlicky. It adds more flavor, but at the same time it seems redundant because the sour chili sauce for oloak is meant to cut through the richness because the omelette is typically fried in a lot of oil, but it is not so at this stall. Anyway, this dish is great because it is as simple as it gets. Lightly flavoured omelette with barely seared oysters. It's nice that the natural flavour of the ingredients actually shine through here. The other seasonings of spring onion, fish sauce, the palm oil, and the chili sambal help to support those natural flavours. It's very nice. Next is fishball soup from 如记 Kitchen. 如记 Kitchen's story is pretty well known in the media. The noodle chain started at Holland Drive Food Centre in 2004, and they now have 3 outlets across Singapore. This particular outlet at Old Airport Road Food Centre was set up in 2012, and it commands long breakfast queues every morning whenever it is open. While its history is not particularly long, the business actually belongs to a heritage fishball noodle family business which started at Red Hill near the Tai Hong Biscuits and Confectionery Factory, Sendirian Berhad, in the early 1970s. The business is famous for their handmade fish balls and fish cakes and meat fish balls with their dressed noodles lah. But you can actually get their fish balls and fish cakes and other ingredients in soup alone without the noodles. Here I have a bowl of about, let's say, how many fish balls? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 fish balls, 6 fish cakes, and 4 meat fish balls lah. Now this is the main highlight. Juicy with a soft texture with a touch of firmness. The taste is a naturally sweet fish flavour and it's boosted by salt. It's very good. The fish balls and fish cakes are handmade every day at their Holland Drive Food Centre branch. It's made from predominantly real fish and have a rougher texture as compared to factory supplied ones. There are bits of ground fish bones and minimal flour. If any, is actually added to the paste. Quite thick. Fish cakes are fried and sliced as is usual for a fishball noodle stall. And they have similar texture and taste as the fish balls, except maybe the texture is slightly firmer and that it has perhaps a little more oil richness. It's basically pork mince plus fish paste and they're mixed together, then they're formed into a ball. I think they put some herbs inside, coriander perhaps. The texture is firmer than the fish ball and it's very nice and meaty, really nice. A clean tasting, decently savoury soup with a light roundness, not overly flavoured but not plain either. And the spring onions and tang add more texture and flavour, and the pork lard adds some very nice fat richness, which is very welcome. Okay, next is white chicken and roasted chicken from Xing Hainanese chicken rice. Now there are 3 chicken rice stalls at Old Airport Road Food Centre and I've tried all 3 of them and they are all fairly well done. It's just a matter of which stall is actually suitable for low carb. And the white chicken and roasted chicken from Xing is just straight ahead, very well done. The stall has been at Old Airport Road for 3 decades and what I ordered today is a quarter of a chicken roasted, a quarter of a chicken white, plus some chicken liver and 1 egg, some soup, and I got some sauces at the side, no rice obviously. And all this cost me $22.20. Very soft and very smooth. If you examine some of the chicken meat here and there, you can tell that the meat is barely poached through and it results in a very soft, succulent, very smooth textured chicken. It's also helped along by a very nice soy seasoning that's basically soy sauce and sesame oil. It's not that concentrated, nor is it the best quality soy or sesame, but it's nice enough and there's no to very little sweetness. And normally the roast chicken, it tends to be more oil rich and slightly saltier. Tends to have a drier meat lah. But here the meat is still quite tender, which is actually very impressive. The chili sauce is also pretty good here. It's spicy with a hint of lemongrass, with a generous amount of savory notes. It's got a slight tanginess. Very good lah. The chili sauce adds a lot of flavor. Next, the liver. God, very soft, very creamy. Oh, wonderful. I asked for a boiled egg, and it's just a boiled egg lah. You know, good if you want to add more protein into your meal. Boiled egg. The soy and sesame seasoning helps it along. Lastly, the soup. Nicely rounded. We've got a lot of aromatic herbs inside, spring onions. This is a good soup. Good clear soup. And if you want to add dark soy sauce, they have it as well. But bear in mind that there is sugar in dark soy sauce lah. So if you want to control your sugars, right, this will turn your meal into a lower carb meal instead of a keto meal. Next is Ban Mian ingredients and soup from Sky JB Mian Fen Kueh. This stall has been at Old Airport Road Food Centre for 12 years and is run by a Malaysian couple from Johor Bahru. You can actually ask for ingredients in their Ban Mian soup, and this is what I have here. It's a mix of fish balls, minced meat, and a poached egg with mani thai, which is very surprising to see because you hardly see mani thai being used in Ban Mian these days. Because it's quite a lot of work that goes into preparing the vegetable. Requires a lot of careful washing, squeezing and storage. Instead, most places replace mani thai with chai sin. Then on top, there are some fried ikan bilis and some pork lard as well, which is great. So this whole thing cost me $5.60 for the dish. First, tasting the soup. The soup has a clean, clear, rounded flavor, but it doesn't taste like they use any sugar at all. Or if they do, it's very little, and there are enough salt notes as well, and there's also a vegetable taste too. That must be because of the mani chai, I suspect. Okay. This is pretty unusual to find in a Ban Mian stall. Doesn't taste like it has too much binding flours in it. These are basically your standard factory-made fish balls. Minced pork clumps. Very nice. This is basically minced pork which they shape into round bits. It's a bit fatty and the mince is fairly soft. There's a bit of a bounce to it. Nicely seasoned as well. It's great that the Ban Mian stall still offers this. Most Ban Mian stalls have switched over to normal chai sin and it's got a green, not so soft, fibrous texture and a very subtle bitter flavor. And of course you get crunchy ikan bilis, which is no longer crunchy because of the soup, and pork lard bits, which is great. And the dish also comes with a poached egg where the yolk is still molten. Yum. Okay, next is Vietnamese beef pho from this stall called Pho Me. This stall has been around since April 2023 and is run by 31-year-old Anna Nguyen. Okay? She migrated from Vietnam and she has been in Singapore for 4 years, and her pho is very, very good. So what I have here is a mixed soup with some extra beef balls, and it's got some spring onions, white onions, and bean sprouts. Then I have another bowl of marrow bones over here, 3 pieces, $7. And I got some oxtail. Oh, yum yum. 1, 2, 3 pieces, 3 pieces or so. So all of this cost me $29. So firstly, the soup, the most important thing. Nice, clear soup. This is amazing. freaking awesome. It's probably the best tasting pho broth that I have tasted in Singapore. It's deep, bold, rounded and full, and it's got a big stock flavour with herb flavours. Now, most pho soups I know are not keto because they typically use sugar to bump up the sweetness of the soup. But I asked Anna whether she uses any sugar, and she looked at me firmly in the eye and proudly said that she uses absolutely no sugar. She said that the sweetness from sugar is very different from the sweetness from ingredients. All of a soup's sweetness is naturally obtained through using a ton of chicken feet, beef bones and turnips which are boiled for more than a day. There are also some additional sweetness from the white onions and spring onions that are sprinkled on top. When I first had this soup, I was simply floored by how good it was. Okay, so next are the beef cuts. They have a wide variety over here. The tripe. The texture has a soft springiness. Very nice. This is a firmer chew. It's got a nice bitey texture. Sliced thin, barely blanched and no sinew at all. Nice soft texture. And the tendon. It's cut into big chunks and it's got a kind of like a medium texture, but it's melting in parts. Very nice. And lastly, the beef balls, which are very, very good. Apparently they are gotten direct from Vietnam, from a small family business that has been in the business of making beef balls for 50, 60 years now. It's got a firm bite to it, yet it's blended smooth and it's not rough. It's very nicely flavoured. It's got a very nice beefy flavour that's well seasoned. It's very nice. Okay, next, the oxtail. Look at this. It's got a meaty texture with a nice bite. I mean, I love oxtail. It's got a lot of meat close to the bone, enough fat, sinew and connective tissue, which turns gelatinous when it's cooked. Wonderful. These bones are absolutely huge, you see. I can show you how much marrow there is inside. That's amazing. That's just from one. Look at this. This is amazing, okay? Oh my lord. This is amazing. I mean, once it's inside the soup, the broth becomes so rich and the marrow has this wonderfully soft melting texture. This is amazing. Okay, next is traditional Chinese soups from Awan Lao Hua Tang. This stall started out at Old Airport Road Food Centre in 2014 and it's my go-to stall when I have a craving for Lao Hua Tang. And the stall does it well here. Fairly thick, robust tasting soups with enough ingredients and at a good price point. And they don't use MSG either. So what I have are 4 soups here. Their Buddha jumps over the wall right here. Their Tang Kueh ginseng herbal chicken soup. Their ginkgo pork stomach pepper soup. And their old cucumber pork rib soup. Basically, I bought 4 soups to show you the variety of their menu, but they actually have more on their menu. I think about 8 to 9 soups. So first trying their Buddha jumps over the wall, which costs $7. It's a bit of an unusual find because you don't always find this at Lao Hua Tang stalls. Okay, first tasting it. Very lovely light natural sweetness, a mix of chicken and seafood flavors and naturally sweetened with some goji berries. The oiliness is very slight and there's a decent seasoning to it. I mean, there's a big reason why Buddha jumps over the wall is so popular, because the stock is actually more complex and rich. As for the ingredients, I mean the ingredients are not bad. Obviously they can't give you restaurant quality but it's pretty decent for $7. You get 3 fairly large fish maw pieces, great for sopping up all that soup. You get some black mushrooms, you get 3. Nicely softened. You get some sliced abalones. These are the ones from a can, so don't expect much. Chewy, can quite rubbery, and some chicken pieces. Okay. Still has a bit of tenderness, a bit of chew, a bit of bite. It hasn't been overcooked to death. Okay, next their ginkgo pig stomach pepper soup, which is this one over here. First the soup. Ooh. Medium pepperiness, very nice pepperiness. There's a nice thickness to the soup, and if you examine the ingredients, right, go right below, you see their secret of thickening the soup without starches. And they actually use barley, which does the job very, very nicely. There's no sweetness at all, and there's a nice pork stock flavor, and I like to medium seasoning. It's also slightly tangy, I'm not too sure where that's from. The pig stomach firstly. Cooked to a firm bounciness. There's also some ginkgo nuts, cooked soft, and there are about 5 or 6 floating around. Okay, next is their old cucumber and pork rib soup. Firstly, the soup. Nice. Pork stock with a little cucumber sweetness. Maybe a slight tanginess too. Lightly savoury. Not sure if there's any sour mustard leaves inside, perhaps. But I don't see any. Next, the old cucumber. You get 3 fairly large slices. Cooked to a nice melting softness. And next, the soft bone pork. Soft bones are soft. You can just crunch it up. Very nice. Soft bones you get about 3 pieces. Old cucumber you get about 3 pieces too. So pretty good value. And lastly, the herbal chicken soup. Tasting the soup, looks nice and thick. Very nice. Oh, this nice prominent herb taste along with the chicken stock flavor. Obviously the goji berries will give it some sweetness. The soup is also salted as well, which is nice. And as for the meat, you actually get a huge chicken leg. Not bad, see? 1 thigh. So it's a huge chicken leg, and so there's a lot of protein there. But unfortunately, and this is my main criticism, is that in traditional Chinese soup stalls, right, there's very little fat content. That's quite common. In all the soups, there's very little oiliness. The most you get is in the pork rib soups, where there's a little bit of fat on it. So you might have to supplement some fatty pork from another stall somewhere if you want to feel full. As for the chicken, well, chicken is chicken. Not protein. That's not salty enough. There's obviously some soy sauce on the side, but I haven't felt the need to actually add any yet. The saltiness is actually quite sufficient. Now before I go on, a word about eating low carb at Western hawker food stalls in general. Now you might think that hawker stalls selling Hainanese style Western food would be ideal for low carb diets, but in reality, I've tried a few of them and they all fail, usually in the taste department. You see, the major problem is that almost all Western hawker food stalls rely on the sauces to provide the flavor and the juiciness. The main purpose of the sauce, by and large, helps to cover up the fact that you're buying a cheap cut of meat or thin cuts of meat. Now, why do hawkers give you cheap meat? It's because they need to keep the cost down. Because most patrons are not going to spend more than $10 to $15 on a hawker lunch. So they jazz up the meat with some gravy and make it taste better. Unfortunately, when you're on a low-carb diet, you generally have to avoid all sauces. The sauces are very often made using thickening starches. Very often they add sugar, instant stock packets, and a lot of other processed flavor enhancers. So the sauces are usually unhealthy, and it is where all the flavor of the dish is at. So once you remove the sauces, all the flavor for the dish goes away completely. The meats on their own are deliberately seasoned or marinated quite lightly so that when you pour the sauce on, the dish doesn't get too salty. So when you order the dishes without the sauces, the meat very often tastes rather plain and under-seasoned. The other issue is that hawker stalls tend to grill the meats until there is a char on them, so that it looks good on the plate. But as a result, the meat is very often overcooked and dry. But that doesn't matter too much when you are adding a gravy because that covers up all the dryness. But that said, if you really want to eat Western food at Old Airport Road Food Centre, I would suggest ordering specifically the dory fish or the steak from this stall called Holy Grill. I'll explain later why. This stall is run by a couple in their 50s, Johnny Quek and Grace Wee, who started selling Western food in the canteen of Tanjong Katong Girls' School in the early 2000s. And it was hugely popular then. Encouraged by parents of the school kids and friends, they ventured out to open their own hawker stall in 2008. And they've been based at Old Airport Road Food Centre ever since. Now, Holy Grill has won praises from the public and food reviewers for their value for money offerings. Huge meat portions and restaurant quality sides, but unfortunately the praises don't quite apply when you're eating low carb. Firstly, most of the sides are not suitable for low carb because it is all carbs. There are only a handful of vegetable options on offer. And secondly, the meat portions are generous, but most of the meats are going to be rather dry without the sauces. So it just means that you get more meat that is not great to eat. So what's the point? However, I've eaten here a few times and I found that there are two dishes that are great when eaten on their own. The steaks and the dory fish. And that's what I have here. One portion of steak, these are strip loins from Australia, and one portion of grilled dory fish with herbs. I asked for some lemon on the side as well. And normally with a hawker Western stall, one meat comes with two sides usually. But I negotiated to just have two sides for all the meat that I ordered. So I ordered two sides of garden veggies. And all this cost me $23.50. So first trying the strip loin steak, I ordered it rare, and that looks pretty rare to me. Nice soft texture, and there's moistness in the meat too, and enough fat richness, and there's enough seasoning on the meat. And the flavor for a steak on its own is pretty flavoursome without the sauces. Next to the dory fish, look at this. I'm gonna put some lemon on top. They give out two sizable fillets, and it's nicely grilled with a nice char, and the meat is still soft and flaky and moist, and it's lightly salted and seasoned nicely with herbs. And the garden veggies, some broccoli and some carrots. It's pre-cooked beforehand and it's cooked to a nice crunch and chill. And they drizzle on some garlic oil on top, but it's not seasoned much. Regarding the sides, I've tried the other two sides which are suitable for low-carb diets apparently. The coleslaw and the house salad, but I wouldn't recommend them honestly. The coleslaw has a heavy mayonnaise seasoning, so it is loaded with bad vegetable oils. So I would avoid that completely. The house salad has a vinaigrette dressing which has some oil notes and is sour but not much else. There's no savory notes or anything, so it doesn't taste great honestly. So the best bet is to just go for the garden veggies. Okay, next is Cantonese style fish soup from Huaji XO Meishi. The stall has been around for 9 years since 2015 and is run by now 60-year-old Mr. Hua. And what he sells here is really good Cantonese fish soup. And both varieties of fish soup, the plain sliced fish and the fried sliced fish, are very commendable. So what I have here is their $7 fried fish soup without rice with additional XO cognac, which is $2 extra. And the total is $9. First, tasting the soup. Oh my god. And the taste is very nice. Fish stock flavor with obviously a great milky flavor, evaporated milk, and lots of ginger flavor. Sometimes they'll throw in some ginger slices inside the soup, 5 slices of ginger, which is a very nice touch, you know what I mean? The additional XO provides some subtle alcoholic flavor and heat to the dish, and combined with the ginger, right, this dish would be perfect on a cold rainy day, which is evidence that it is not a cold rainy day today. It's also decently salted as well, so you don't really need the extra soy sauce on the side, but if you want, you can obviously add more, like what I'm doing now. Apparently the soup is boiled for 6 hours and it is further enhanced with some evaporated milk. Bear in mind that evaporated milk has a small amount of lactose inside. It's also enhanced with a little bit of chicken powder, which I saw on the shelf, which is not great because it has got maltodextrin, which actually severely spikes your blood sugar. It also contains sugar and other additives like MSG and silicon dioxide, but thankfully most fish soup stalls usually only use a small amount of it. But if you're sensitive or you want to be extra safe, it's best to avoid this. The other highlight is that the ingredients are very generous for the money. 6 slices of super thick batang fish, look at this. Each piece is almost the size of 3 normal slices of batang fish. Fish is lightly seasoned, but importantly, it's fried with no batter. So there's no carbs here, which is great. What they do is that they actually double fry it. They fry it once in a wok, and then they take it out, and then they fry it in another wok. And the fish also tastes quite fresh. I mean, there's no fishy smell or anything, which is great. They also give you a super huge piece of tofu. Look at this. Can hardly fit on the spoon. Fantastically big. Soft tofu. And they give you some Chinese cabbage as well. And they also give you a wedge of tomato, which is, I mean, you know, again, it's also very big as well. So all the ingredients here are super huge. Now, if you don't really care about the XO, you can get the fried fish soup on its own, which is $7. And if you don't care that the fish is actually fried, you can opt for just the poached fish, which is $6. It's $1 cheaper, but they don't give you such big pieces of fish. But you do get a medium to large prawn as well. And it tastes fresh enough, not powdery or anything. And if you love fish head, they have their XO fried fish head soup for $7 also.